we are convinced that unless these basic problems of Asia are solved, there can be no world peace.
In 1961, he visited Belgrade for the first ever conference of non-aligned nations. Heads of governments and states assembled to launch a new peace initiative. Jawaharlal steered the conference away from the old anti-colonial stance. At his initiative, the conference passed a resolution on the threat to peace by continuing nuclear tests by the superpowers. Jawaharlal Nehru welcomed to Delhi the heads of states and statesmen, leaders of various countries and eminent personalities. Andre Malraux, Martin Luther King, Helen Keller, Jawaharlal maintained almost a round-the-clock work schedule, with a brief spell of the office at home in the mornings. Breakfast with the family, daughter Indira, son-in-law Feroz, and the grandchildren. Meeting with people, calling on him, and then to office or parliament. After dinner, every night, he worked with a relay of stenographers. He received an average of 2,000 letters a day and replied to a large number of them himself, or directed others for action by departments concerned. For several years, India had been trying to settle the issue of French and Portuguese enclaves in India. France behaved in a statesmanlike manner and transferred the French territories to India. Portugal, however, refused to negotiate. Nehru declared,
obviously, Goa is a part of India. Basically, and in this dangerous world, it is not possible for us to tolerate any foreign foothold in India for our safety, for our security of the nation.
The Goan freedom fighters launched a peaceful agitation to liberate Goa. They were fired upon. Western alliances threatened to invoke their mutual defense pact with Portugal and come to Portugal's aid in the event of an Indian attack on Goa. The Indian army entered Goa with practically no opposition, and the Portuguese Governor-General surrendered without a fight.
The military approach is alien to our culture. Really, this was the dilemma which held us back from military action in Goa for 14 years.
In his own childhood, He missed the company of children of his own age, but loved the company of children and shared their gaiety and laughter.
We live in a wonderland that is full of beauty, charm, and adventure. Learn to admire the beauty around us. The essential thing is to be human, kind, playful, and make life richer for ourselves and others.
Lhasa, the capital of Tibet, and the abode of the Dalai Lama had come under the control of the Chinese army. Towards the end of the 50s, Chinese troops started intruding into Indian territory in Ladakh, Parahoti, and the northeast. In the uninhabited Aksai Chin Plateau of Ladakh, they constructed a road across Indian territory. Indian patrols were fired upon, killing many. Nehru sent a strong protest and invited the Chinese leaders for talks. India maintained that the McMahon Line and the Himalayan watershed were the boundary according to the Treaty of 1914. China agreed to attend the official level talks. When repression increased in Tibet, the Dalai Lama, the spiritual head of Tibet, escaped. He was granted asylum in India, in keeping with international convention. But the Chinese were unhappy. Civil war broke out in the Congo. The United Nations was again called upon to play a more active role in restoring peace and stability. India agreed to send her troops to help re-establish the central government of the Congo, now called Zaire. Speaking at the United Nations, Nehru said,
"The role of the United Nations is a mediatory one to reconcile and to help in the proper functioning of the central government. Help in the development of the Congo is again a tremendous and long-term problem. Ultimately, it is the people of the Congo who will have to produce their own leadership, whether it is good or bad. Leadership cannot be imposed, and any attempt to do so will lead to conflict."
India's efforts received a pat from the Secretary General of the UN, Dag Hammarskjöld, who remarked, "Thank God for India." Chinese incursions into Indian territory increased in the northeast and in Ladakh. On the 20th of October 1962, the Chinese army launched a massive attack on India, both in Ladakh and in the northeast. The Indian army was not prepared for such a full-scale invasion. Nehru was shocked by this unprovoked act of treachery.
Instances in history where one country, that is India, has gone out of her way to be friendly and cooperative with the Chinese government and people and to plead their cause in the councils of the world, and then for the Chinese government to return evil for good and even go to the extent of committing aggression and invade our sacred land.
The army suffered reverses in the face of overwhelming odds, as wave after wave of Chinese overflowed their positions. In Ladakh, they fought with their traditional valor. The United States and other countries offered help. Y.B. Chavan replaced Krishna Menon as the defense minister. The chief of the army staff, the corps commander on the Eastern Front were changed. China declared a unilateral ceasefire, but the damage had been done. India suffered a traumatic experience, and for Nehru, it was a stab in the back. But he accepted the responsibility for the reverses. He never really recovered from the shock. In spite of poor health, he continued to work for creating a world free from war, free from hunger, free from poverty. Although Jawaharlal was an idealist, he was also a pragmatic statesman, with his vision set on the future and not on the next election. He was essentially a humanist. That is why people of all ages, races, and nations found something of themselves in him.
For us, peace is a passion. Not only a passion, but something that all our logic and mind drives us to.
Jawaharlal was courteous. He was considerate. He was intelligent. A charming conversationalist with a sense of humor. Yet at times, he was shy and withdrawn. Tales of romance were woven around him, for he was the hero of the masses who adored him. His greatest contribution was the knitting together of a people, of a vast country. He gave them a sense of belonging and helped them establish a viable democracy, the largest in the world. When people started talking of his picking a successor, Jawaharlal said,
"The country's democracy has become strong enough to find a successor from among 400 million people."
He told the famous editor Norman Cousins,
"The question of picking an individual successor is something quite alien to my way of thinking. I am not trying to start a dynasty. I am not capable of ruling from the grave."
Jawaharlal deeply loved the Indian people and wanted to be remembered for his commitment to them.
If any people choose to think of me, I should like them to say, this was a man who with all his mind and heart loved India and the Indian people, and they in turn were indulgent to him and gave him of their love most abundantly and extravagantly.
Jawaharlal Nehru's life and work have best been described by Sarojini Naidu in a letter written to him long, long ago. Sorrow, suffering, sacrifice, anguish and strife. Yes, these are the predestined gifts of life for you. You are a man of destiny, born to be alone in the midst of the crowd, deeply loved, but little understood.
The good of the 400 millions of India must be our supreme objective. Let us face the future not with easy optimism or with any complacency or weakness, but with confidence and a firm faith in India. With firm faith in our future, I appeal to you to cooperate in the great task ahead and to march together to the haven of freedom for all in India. Jai Hind.